Hi, my name is Miguel Lopezi, and I'm a PhD student at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Let me share my slides here. And today we're going to be, I'll be going over all the basics you need to know about doing a annotated bibliography. So let's get started here. All right. First, I will be covering plagiarism and in two ways on how to avoid them by citing correctly and in APA formatting and paraphrasing. Then I will show you an easy and effective way of reading academic research articles. And at the end, you will have all the skills you need to be able to do an annotated bibliography. So what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is when you take someone else's work and use it as your own without acknowledging them. In an academic setting, plagiarism can lead to students being disciplined or even expelled. And to avoid plagiarism, you need to provide appropriate credit to the authors from which you borrowed the idea by citing the source. So another way to avoid plagiarism is to paraphrase. So let's get into how to cite appropriately and paraphrase. APA formatting uses both the author's last name and the publication date in parentheses. It also lets the reader know where the idea came from and acknowledges how others contributed to your work. There are two types of in-text citations, parenthetical and narrative in-text citations. Let's take a closer look at both of these. So first, in parenthetical citations, the author's last name and publication year appears inside of parentheses. For example, take a look at the first example sentence here at the top, and it goes, always do at least one kind thing for a person a day because it is good for your soul and well-being. Let's say that this came from a research article that I wrote and published. So the parenthetical citation would say Lopezi, comma, 2021 at the end of the sentence. And in a narrative in-text citation, the author's name is incorporated somewhere in the sentence. However, in this case, only the year is in parentheses. And there are other ways for doing narrative in-text citations, but this is the most common one. Let's look at an example. On the second box down, you'll see that it reads, Lopezi 2021 suggests that you should do at least one kind thing for a person a day because it is good for your soul and well-being. As you can see here, the last name Lopezi is within the running text, and the year of the publication is in parentheses. But what if there are more than one authors? How do we cite these? So let's take a look at that next. In APA formatting, if there is just one author, you put it as it shows here, number one, just as I went over earlier. The last name, comma, and the year the publication was done. However, when you have two authors, as seen here, number two, for parenthetical citations, you include an and symbol in the middle of the name of the last names, followed by the comma and publication year. So for narrative citations, you spell out and A-N-D and still put the publication year, but this time in parentheses, as shown here. However, when there are three or more authors, you include the first author's last name and et al, followed by a period and a comma, then the publication year. And this is in a parenthetical citation. For narrative citations, you include the last name followed by et al. And period, then the publication year in parentheses, as shown here to the right. Again, there are other ways this can be done, but to keep it simple, I'm just showing you the most common way. Now, as far as paraphrasing goes, paraphrasing is when you put someone else's work, ideas, and writings into your own words, while maintaining the integrity of the meaning behind it, or whatever the author wrote. So let's take a look at a five-step method on how to do this. Paraphrasing in 5 easy steps. Step number 1, read the passage several times to fully understand the meaning. And this may just take, this may just take you 2 or 3 times. But if it doesn't, just continue reading it a few more times. Now, step 2, take note of the key concepts. And this could be key words in the sentence. Step 3, look away and write your version using your own style of what was written in the passage. So at this point, you've already read it a few times or a couple of times, then you look away and you just start writing, whatever you think that passage was about, using also your keywords that you just jotted down. So step 4, take a look at what you wrote on the original sentence and the original sentence to make sure that the meaning is still the same and similar in context. If it is not, then adjust it to make it similar, using maybe synonyms for some of the words in the passage. This would be a great way of doing it. For example, if the original passage uses the word greater, you can maybe use significant, but just make sure that the word matches the meaning of the context and the original passage. Step 5, immediately cite the source. So this is a very important step in order to avoid plagiarism. You immediately cite the source using the APA formatting and using the appropriate style, parenthetical or narrative in text citations. So I'll go over an example on the next slide. And then finally, before you move on, do a quick check to make sure it's good by reading the passage, by rereading the passage you paraphrased and paying close attention to the style, making sure it's your own style and not the author's style, and that the meaning hasn't changed. And take another look at the citation just to make sure it looks good. Now you're ready to move on, and let's take a look at how this is played out in an example. But remember, you have to be careful not to use wording that is too similar to the original. Otherwise, you could be at risk of committing plagiarism. And also, every time you paraphrase, it's important to cite the source. So don't forget that, and you do this right away before you forget. So let's take a look at this example. The original passage reads, of the traditionally underrepresented students of color in STEM, only 24% of African Americans, Hispanics, and Native American students complete a STEM bachelor's degree within 6 years, compared with 40% of white students. And this came out from an article, and as you can see here, the keywords could be underrepresented, students of color, STEM, and then maybe bachelor's degree in 6 years. So you can do a narrative in text citation by writing something like is shown here on the paraphrase version below. According to Botello et al. 2020, underrepresented students of color in STEM are less likely to complete their bachelor's degree within 6 years than their white counterparts. And then you can also write a parenthetical citation by writing underrepresented students of color in STEM are less likely to complete their bachelor's degree within 6 years when compared to the white counterparts. Again, these are just some examples, and there are other ways of writing these sentences. An annotated bibliography is a bibliography that paper that gives a short summary of each of the sources. This may look like a small paragraph for each of the sources, just covering the main points and ideas of the research article. The purpose of the annotations are to provide a summary and an evaluation of each source that can later be used in writing your paper. Let's take a look at an example of how to do this. Here is how it looks like. At the top, you include the reference and APA formatting, and this is automatically done using programs such as Zotero or using your library's website. The start of your annotation paragraph begins indented by 1/2 inch. Then you write a brief sentence or two summarizing the research article. However, try not to rely on the abstract and read the article using the techniques that I will be going over in the next few slides. So for each of the 5 questions, make sure you are answering with 1 sentence and a max of 2. Remember, you want to keep your annotations short and precise. Next, write how the source is useful or relevant to your project. This is number 2. Here you would explain if the source talks about an idea or study that relates to your research topic. Then number 3, does the source help prove a point? Here you would explain if the source is talking about a specific point or idea that helps us better understand certain aspects of your research project. And number 4, write a sentence or two about any facts, theories, or empirical evidence, such as the results of a study that can be useful or relevant to your own. And finally, number 5, how does this source fit into your own project? Here you want to explain how this research article fits into the overall research you are doing. Now, this is an example of how one looks like, and this is just using 2 annotations. So you will continue adding to it until you've exhausted all your sources you want to explore. Now let's shift gears for a bit and learn how to read academic research articles. First, you need to know that there are 2 types of research articles, theoretical and empirical. Theoretical articles are those that draw upon existing research and do not analyze any data. A way to easily find out if this is a theoretical research article is by quickly skimming through the passages, to the pages, and looking for a methods or results section. So theoretical articles don't have these sections. Theoretical papers closely resemble a piece of work from like an article blog or a chapter of a book. However, these papers usually use empirical evidence to support their theories and are not comparable to some books or blogs that don't use these type of evidence and are not peer-reviewed. On the other hand, empirical articles are those that are based on an experiment or some type of study. These do include a method and results section. Empirical research articles often have an abstract, and this is a brief summary of a paper, and that's about 150 to 250 words. It also includes an introduction or literature review. Some of these are sometimes combined, sometimes they split them up into 2, but it's considered one section, and this is in which the author introduces the topic and reviews past research on this particular topic. And then there's a method section in which the author talks about the participants of the study, any materials or measures used, and the procedure of their experiment. These papers also include a results section in which the data is analyzed. Both the methods and results sections of the article are sometimes hard to read, especially for inexperienced readers or novice students. Finally, there is a discussion section in which the author shares the implications and narrative results of the study. This is a very important part of the paper as it talks about why the study was conducted and the results it got and how they apply. Now, how should you read these papers? So let's check it out on the next slide. Now, how would you read these papers? Well, let's start with the theoretical research article. These articles are easy to read. You start at the beginning and work your way towards the end, just like reading a chapter of a book. So you start from start to finish. That's fairly easy. Now, for empirical research articles, on the other hand, you begin by first reading the abstract, as shown here. This should give you a broad idea about what to expect in the paper. Don't worry if you don't understand it. It will make more sense later. The gist here is for you to briefly know what the article is about before you read it. After you've read the abstract, you should go straight to the discussion or conclusion section at the end of the paper. Here, you find out what the results of the study are and why this research is important and its implications. If after reading the abstract and discussion sections, you feel that this research article is relevant for your own research, then you go back to the top and read the introduction or literature review, and then read the abstract one more time. This time, you should be able to understand the abstract. But if you don't quite understand it, read the discussion section once again. Now, you're ready to start writing your annotated bibliography, so make sure you avoid plagiarism by appropriately citing and your sources and paraphrasing. So once you are done with your annotated bibliography and begin writing your paper or doing more research on the topic, make sure you do go back and read that methods and results sections of the article. They are important and they do have more information about how the experiment and the study was conducted, which may be also useful when you are conducting your own research or writing your own paper. But just to keep it simple for now, reading the abstract, then the discussion or conclusion section, and going to the introduction, literature review, and then once again, the abstract does give you a broad idea. And these sections are a little bit easier to read, and it helps you do your annotations more efficiently and quickly, other than reading a 20-page paper. Sometimes just reading just the important key things at the beginning might give you that idea or that sources that you need to get you started. All right, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative and I help you prepare and write more effective annotated bibliographies. Have a nice day. And as this quote says, a little spark of kindness can put a colossal burst of sunshine into someone's life. So don't forget to go out of your way each day and every day to do at least one kind thing for someone else. Have a good day.